Welcome to yet another video. So in this one we are going to talk about the inventory section. So we will walk through how you set up your inventory all the way up to when you have automatic deductions being made as you make sales. So to set up inventory you need to understand three things. Number one, how do you create purchase items? So these are things that suppliers, things that you purchase from suppliers rather. And then the second part is you need a list of suppliers as well, because if you have an item, then you must be getting it from somewhere. So, and then the last part would be setting up the recipes themselves, for example. So today I'm going to work with one item. I'm just going to create one purchase item that will be Bombay Sapphire, and we will set it up all the way to have it being automatically deducted as we make sales on the POS side. So the first step, you're gonna come to categories. So your purchase items are categorized in a way that you define. So in my categories, I have a list of a couple of things: fruits and vegetables, gins, imported beer, and all that. So I have gins, and Bombay Sapphires is a gin. So if you need more categories, you just click here and create a new category and give it a little description. So when I come to purchase items, I can create a new item, and we're going to work with Bombay Sapphire. So this is the most important part of setting up inventory, because you get to do this once, and though a couple of things can be adjusted as you receive items from suppliers, but let's get started. So the unit measure for Bombay Sapphire. So the unit measure, this refers to how do you want to keep track of the quantities in your stock for Bombay Sapphire. So this particular gin, and in most cases, is sold in two ways. Either someone buys a shot of Bombay Sapphire, which is more of the most common option, or someone might opt to buy a whole bottle. So you always go with the list quantity. So in this case would be the tots. So you have a really huge list of unit measures, which can all as well be adjusted. So I'm going to go with tots because the least possible unit of sale for this bottle is gonna be tots. So the pack size. So this bottle has let's say I'm not really sure the sizes of Bombay Sapphire, but let's say they have a 750 ml bottle. So I'm being specific because I can receive Bombay Sapphire in two different ways. I can receive Bombay Sapphire the 1 liter bottle, and then Bombay Sapphire the 750 liter bottle. So it doesn't really matter. So the math here is that you need to know how many tots are in this bottle. So for a tot measure of maybe 25 ml or 30 ml, so if you do the math, if I get 750 divided by 30, that's 25 tots. On an assumption that your tot measures are 30 milliliters. Every shot is 30 milliliters. So the whole bottle will have a total size of 25 tots. So what is the price for the 25 tots or the whole bottle? So I'm gonna go with a rough figure of 48,000 as a purchase price, not the sale price. Keep in mind, we are not talking anything about sale. This is purchases specifically. So I buy this bottle at 48,000, and the system also provides for an option where I can tell it the minimum number of thoughts I need to keep track, so that every time I go below that, the system reminds me that, hey, this item is running low. So these are emails that are sent out, which we can possibly cover in another video. So the minimum stock, I'm gonna say 25, which would be a whole bottle, and the category for this would be jeans. So if you can go through this one more time, we have a Bombay Sapphire bottle, which has a quantity of 750 milliliters. So since this bottle is sold as a whole or in tots, I'm gonna go with tots, since it is the least possible measure that I can sell this item. So the pack size would be 25, which would be the number of tots, since it is the measure I've selected. So this Bombay Sapphire 750 ml bottle has 25 tots, and I buy this bottle at 48,000 Ugandan shillings. So the minimum stock in tots would be 25, which is one bottle. So I always want to know every time I'm going below a bottle. And Bombay Sapphire, of course, belongs to jeans, which is the list of categories we saw earlier. So when I create this item, you'll notice that I now have Bombay Sapphire, Bombay Sapphire. Should be page 1. Yeah, Bombay Sapphire 750, and the record, the information just the way. You can always come back and adjust this. There's no problem. You could even delete the item, but that's where we'll go with. So second thing, we'll need to create a supplier for Bombay Sapphire. There is someone who supplies us with Bombay Sapphire, which takes us to the next step, suppliers. So the little plus icon here creates a supplier. So I'm gonna call this, for simplicity, I'm gonna call it Bombay Sapphire supplier. The contact can be literally anything. You might want correct information, just so if you need to call them or something like that. Bb at email. Just simple test thing. So when I update my suppliers list, I now have a Bombay Sapphire supplier. So we now have two things. We have a supplier and we have an item. So the next thing would be to create the relationship between the item and then the supplier, which brings me to the next part, which is the supply items. So when I click view, I'm able to see what items this supplier provides me with. And you'll notice on the right, we have a whole list of all items in the menu. The whole list of all your purchase items. So I'm gonna look for Bombay Sapphire and add it to a list of items that this person supplies me with. So you can add as many items as you want. There is no limit to the number of items you can get from a supplier. So you can, if it's the same person who gives you Absolute Vodka, Amarula, and Amstel, Bacardi, it's you just add them. The list, there is no limit to the list. But I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep one for test purposes. But we can always come back here and add more items. So let me just add two actually. Let me add Amstel and Bacardi. So we have our supplier and we have the list of items this supplier actually provides us with. So what would be the next step? The next step would be to come to our menu recipes. So we've created a relationship between the supplier and the purchase item. Now we need to create a relationship between the menu item sold, which would be the Bombay Sapphire. So when you come to your settings and menu, you will, of course, Bombay Sapphire is a gene, so I have a category gene. When I view items, I just want to make sure I have Bombay Sapphire. So I have Bombay Thought and Bombay, just Bombay. So I'm just gonna rename this to Bombay Sapphire Thought. So like I said, it can be sold as a thought or as a bottle. So I'm gonna update that, and then I'm gonna say this is Bombay Sapphire 750 milliliter bottle, which would be of course around 60,000 or something. The price doesn't really matter. So the tot is 6,000 and the whole bottle is 60,000. So that's the set. That's according to my menu, which can be a little bit different on your end. So I have the two items. So now what's left is I'm gonna have to come back to my inventory under recipes, and I'm gonna look for Bombay Sapphire, the two items. So it says no purchases found because we have no record of purchase for the item, and we actually don't have a relationship. So when you click view, just like the relationship with the supplier, we have a relationship between a menu item and then the purchase item. So here, this is where we define what quantities do we need to deduct from our inventory every time this item is sold. Okay, so the item we're dealing with is the bottle. So every time we sell one bottle of Bombay Sapphire, we're gonna come to our stock, and from the Bombay Sapphire bottle, we're going to take off, we said 25 tots because that's the total number of tots that are in one bottle. So when I add that, so the relationship is created. So from now on, every time you make a sale of one bottle of Bombay Sapphire, it's gonna come to your inventory and take off 25 tots. Simple enough. So we do the same thing for the tot. So this is your item in the menu. So every time you sell a tot of Bombay Sapphire, we're gonna come to the store, and from Bombay Sapphire bottle, we're gonna take off one. So you add that relationship as well. So now we have our supplier, we have the item, and we have the recipes. So what would be next? So the next thing would be to create a purchase invoice, or to create a record of purchase. So when you look at our inventory, we don't have anything because we don't have any purchases recorded yet. So when I select to create a new invoice, I'm gonna say Bombay Sapphire, the first invoice, for example, and this came in today. So the supplier is Bombay Sapphire supplier. So when I click add items, I'm gonna get a list of items that I attached to this supplier. So that's why we needed to create the relationship between the supplier items and the supplier himself, because you don't want to see a list of 1,000 items as you have them in your purchase items list. So you only want to see the items that relate to the supplier himself. So we are let me see, we actually forgot to add Bombay Sapphire. We must have removed that. So let me just add that real quick. I'm gonna delete this invoice, and coming back to suppliers, Bombay Sapphire supplier, yeah, we took it off. So I'm gonna add it to the list, and when I come back to purchase invoices, it's Bombay Sapphire 001 today, Bombay Sapphire. So when I add items, I now have Bombay Sapphire, the 750 ml bottle that we created. So when I select this, you'll notice that I can only update 2 or 3 things. The packs received rather are the number of bottles, because we set this item to in a way that every one bottle gives us 25 tots. So let's say we're receiving 4 bottles, for example. You can either use the arrows up, or you can just enter maybe a 10 or something. So let's receive 4 bottles. So 4 bottles gives us 100 tots. Okay, and if the price still remains the same, 4 bottles will cost you 192,000. If for some reason the prices go up, or depending on the market value, it could go to maybe 45,000. So the prices vary, but you will always have a base price, which can be adjusted depending on the time of purchase of the item. So at 45,000, 4 bottles will cost you 180,000. So the last thing we will want to add is the expiry date of these items. Since they came in together, they should have the same expiry date. So if they're different, you're gonna have to enter each bottle differently. So I'm gonna go with the 30th of September to be the date of expiry for this item. So when I click add, an item is added to the invoice, which, by the way, you can add more items. So in our stock, we now have 100 tots of Bombay Sapphire. So you can add more items. For example, I could have received Amstel. Amstel is received in bottles, and every bottle is this much. So I could have received maybe 24 bottles at we would say 800 per bottle, for example, and these expire maybe 27th. So when I add that, you'll notice, of course, that's also added, but our main concentration is going to be around Bombay Sapphire, because that's the item we really want to test with. So when I save this invoice, I have a new entry, and I can still come back and view the items that were received. So when I come back to inventory, it shows that we have 24 bottles of Amstel, and we have 41 tots of Bombay Sapphire, since we received 4 bottles. So that gives us 41 tots, rounding up, of course. So now in what we'll need to do is, let's try to make a sale of Bombay Sapphire. So when you come to POS, I'm gonna create a new order. So Bombay Sapphire. So there is an option to sell a bottle, which will knock off 40 tots, but I'm gonna go with a tot to start with. So I'm gonna sell three shots, for example. So 3 shots. Once I confirm this, you'll notice that in the inventory we still have 41 tots. Why? Because the deductions are only made up until a bill is settled. So when I settle this bill by cash, and you come back to the inventory, you'll notice that we now have 38 tots from the 41 after selling 3. So let's sell a bottle, for example. So when I come back to jeans again, Bombay Sapphire, 1 bottle, and I confirm this, and I settle this, let's say Visa. So when you come to the inventory, you see that we now have 13. So that's how you create relationships between your items and your inventory. So I hope this has really been helpful. So what happens here on, all you need to do is you just have to record purchase invoices. Every time you receive new items, you're gonna need to record these purchases, and that's how your inventory grows. And the more sales you make, the more deductions are made. So the last thing is, this system also allows you to keep track of suppliers' payments. So let's take an example of the Bombay Sapphire supplier. When we come to supplier statements, if I'm looking for the Bombay Sapphire supplier, you notice that to date, this is the amount of money that we owe him. So you can record payments, of course. You have an option to select a supplier, Bombay Sapphire. So I want to make a payment of the amount of money. I'm gonna make a partial payment of 50,000. So this was today. Maybe we gave him yesterday, but I'm gonna keep it to today. So we paid him cash, for example. It could be any. I'm gonna stick to cash. I'm gonna say part payment for invoice. Bombay Sapphire was 001, for example. Actually, this comes to remarks, not payment reference. So payment reference field comes to options where you paid the person by check, EFT, or mobile money. So if it's a check, you might want to enter the payment reference number. Maybe it could be the check number or something like that. If it is EFT, you might just want to add the reference of the payment just for just to keep track of the payment. But I'm gonna stick to cash, and then the remarks pretty simple. Just a note for as a reminder of what the payment was actually for. So when I save this and come back to the supplier statements, you will notice that so we made a payment of 50,000, and we got an invoice of 199. So the balance is 149,200. So these statements are run for as long as you want. You can move back. My screen is a bit small, but you can run them as far back as you want. And you can also get PDFs for the same, which you can literally share with the supplier himself. So it's that's how the inventory is set up. I will make a final video of other features that that the system gives you, which include emails of stock items that are running low, emails that can be sent out to suppliers for requesting for supply and stuff like that. So I just wanted to keep this one straight on point, and I'll see you guys in the next one.